Hello everybody, it's Rabbi Dov Chastain, and I am here to learn more Hilchos doggies with you. This is most applicable to doggies, but it can be applied to other pets too, and I am going to talk about an issue that affects many a pet owner, and that is the issue of getting your pet spayed or neutered, like it said at the end of every episode of The Price is Right growing up. But that's a bit of a problem if you're Jewish, and sometimes you can buy a dog that's already spayed or neutered, but what happens if you get one that is not a good old natural doggy? What can you do, and what is the prohibition that's in front of you? Before I get going, I'd like to say that this is extremely applicable for anybody who buys a new puppy or kitten, because those animals usually have not been spayed or neutered yet. And I also want to point out that much of what I'm going to be saying today is based on a very thorough article written by Rabbi Howard Jachter in 1992 that is easily accessible on the internet. Just search his name and pets, and you're going to find it. Okay, let's get started. The Shulchan Aruch and Even HaEzer, Hey Yud Aleph, 511, lists a prohibition to remove the reproductive organs from humans or animals, whether male or female. There's a debate regarding whether removal of reproductive organs from females constitutes a biblical or rabbinical prohibition, and we're not going to focus on that debate here. But if you'd like to learn more about it, you can take a look at the Igros Moshe from Rav Moshe Feinstein Zatzal and Even HaEzer, Dalid Lamed Dalid 434. The Talmud, the Gemara in Sanhedrin Nun Vav Amud Beis 56b, records a dispute whether the Torah forbids non-Jews to remove reproductive organs, whether from a Jew's animal or from their own animal, and the Rishonim differ regarding which opinion is really accepted as the Halacha. The Beis Shmuel and Even HaEzer Hey Tes Zayin in 516 rules that this controversy has not been resolved, and when a person renders a halachic decision, a posek must consider the position that non-Jews are forbidden to remove reproductive organs as well. On the other hand, the Aruch HaShulchan in Even HaEzer Hey Chaf Vav 526 rules in accordance with what he calls the majority opinion that non-Jews are not commanded concerning this prohibition. And a difference between the two opinions is whether we are forbidden on a biblical or rabbinic level to instruct a non-Jew to remove the reproductive organs of an animal. If non-Jews are included in this command, then instructing a non-Jew to remove reproductive organs would be a biblical violation of Lifnei Iver Lo Sitein Michshol, of not putting a stumbling block in front of the blind, which is Vayikra Yud Tes Yud Daled, Leviticus 19:14, which prohibits enabling and encouraging others to do an Aveira, to do a sin. On the other hand, if non-Jews are not included in this commandment, then the prohibition involved in instructing a non-Jew to remove reproductive organs is a general rabbinic prohibition which forbids a Jew to instruct a non-Jew to perform any act forbidden by the Torah on behalf of a Jew. You can see the Shulchan Aruch and Even HaEzer Hey Yud Daled 514 and the comments of the Chelkas Mechokek and the Beis Shmuel there for an in-depth look at this topic. A practical difference between these two opinions is whether one may instruct a non-Jewish veterinarian to remove an animal's reproductive organs in order to alleviate the animal's suffering due to sickness. A person is not allowed to violate a biblical prohibition to alleviate an animal's suffering, but it would appear that one may violate a rabbinic prohibition to ask a non-Jew to do what a Jew may not do in order to alleviate an animal's suffering. And the Shulchan Aruch and Aruch Chaim Shin Hey Chaf 305:20 states that a person is allowed to instruct a non-Jew to perform a biblically prohibited act on Shabbos to alleviate an animal's suffering, and the prohibitions to remove reproductive organs is less severe than the prohibition to violate Shabbos, and it's a kal v'chomer that one should be able to be over that avera to do that prohibition to alleviate suffering if one would be allowed to break Shabbos for it. However, since the Beis Shmuel, who is considered to be one of the most authoritative commentaries on the Even HaEzer section of Shulchan Aruch, rules that one must consider the opinion which holds that non-Jews are forbidden to remove reproductive organs, one should not ask a non-Jew to remove an animal's reproductive organs, even to alleviate suffering. So because we have that Beis Shmuel that's machmir, it's very hard to paskin against him. Nevertheless, there are a number of possible solutions to this problem. Some of the most prominent halachic authorities of the 19th century describe a common practice among observant Jews who owned animals for commercial purposes. This involves selling an animal to a non-Jew and instructing this non-Jew to ask another non-Jew to spay or neuter the animal. And the purpose of this procedure is to create a situation of aiding and aider, lifnei de lifnei iver, encouraging one person to encourage another to violate a Torah law, which is not a violation of lifnei iver, of not putting a stumbling block in front of the blind. It also creates a situation of amira le'amir la'akum, instructing a non-Jew to instruct another non-Jew to perform an act that a Jew can't do, which many authorities state is mutter. It's permissible. In addition, by transferring title of the animal to the non-Jew, one avoids the rabbinic penalty, which requires one who has had his animal's reproductive organs removed to sell the creature. And yes, you heard me right. There's a knas, there's a penalty on a person who gets his pet spayed or neutered that they would need to sell the animal, and this strategy would negate that penalty. But that's mainly talking about commercial animals. And although many contemporary halachic authorities believe it inappropriate to utilize this procedure with household pets for purposes of convenience, for example, to eliminate unwanted litters or to prevent an animal looking to mate from trying to leave your house, and it's quite possible that one may do so if it is necessary to alleviate an animal's suffering due to sickness. So if you're dealing with a household pet, you don't have the same necessity that you would if you had a commercial animal, but if the animal is in pain due to sickness, there could be room to be makel. And the Aruch HaShulchan would very likely agree with this conclusion, since he rules that non-Jews don't fall into this issue, i.e. they're not forbidden to remove reproductive organs. And the Beis Shmuel might also agree, since in using this procedure, one may avoid violating the lifnei iver prohibition. In addition, there's a greater room for leniency when a female pet is involved, since many authorities believe neutering a female, i.e. spaying, to be a rabbinic prohibition, and even a minority opinion, the Taz and Even Ezra Vav 5-6 believes that one is permitted to neuter a female animal if the procedure is performed for the creature's benefit. There's a different solution to this problem also. It was offered by a Rabbi Unterman in his Otzar HaPoskim Volume 1, page 164 and 165, where he describes the procedure of neutering, which he believes constitutes only a rabbinic prohibition, since it does not involve direct removal of the reproductive organs of the animal. Instead, the blood supply to the testicles is eliminated, and the testicles begin to shrivel, and the animal is rendered sterile. And Rabbi Unterman asserts that one who performs this procedure violates the prohibition indirectly through gruma, which is permitted on a Torah level and forbidden by the Rabbanon only on a rabbinic level. And then if you had a non-Jew do that, it would be okay. And I would suggest that what is known today as neutering would fall into the same category. Neutering is the act of rendering a male dog sterile via injection with zinc gluconate into the testes. And the authorities who rule that non-Jews are forbidden to neuter animals concede that non-Jews are forbidden only to perform biblically forbidden acts of neutering. Non-Jews are not required to follow rabbinic legislation, since unlike Jews, they are not obligated to adhere to rabbinic rulings. So according to this approach, one does not violate the prohibition of enabling another to sin if one instructs a non-Jew to perform one of the two aforementioned procedures. In addition, Rabbi Unterman writes that the prohibition to instruct a non-Jew to perform an act forbidden to a Jew does not apply to rabbinic prohibitions other than the rabbinic prohibitions associated with the observance of Shabbos. And you can check out the Ramon or Chaim Tuf Samech Ches Aleph 468.1 and the Bir Agra there in Sifkat and Dalid, Sifkat and number 4, and the Beis Ephraim in Yerodea in Samech Beis number 62. And based on this, Rabbi Unterman rules that one may instruct a non-Jew to neuter an animal in this indirect manner. However, he cautions against implementing his opinion until eminent halachic authorities of our day concur with this ruling. So therefore, one has to consult with their Elkor, their local community competent Orthodox rabbi, before a person follows this ruling. And the best solution to this problem, which seems like a major headache, but also seems like the easiest way to avoid any problems, is to use one of the many newly developed alternatives to castration and ovariohysterectomy, which do not involve removal of reproductive organs. It's more or less puppy birth control. And Rabbi Jackter recommends a couple of articles in his article that a person could read about puppy birth control. There appears to be no halachic opposition to these methods, since the animals are only rendered infertile, they're not castrated, their reproductive organs are not removed. The prohibition of serous appears to apply only to the removal of reproductive organs and not to the causing of an animal to become infertile. One has to consult a competent halachic authority to ascertain the permissibility of any of these procedures, and I hope this information was enlightening and helpful. And that's it for now. Hatzlacha Rabbah and Kol Tuv.